There was more than simply a winner at the 2026 Australian Grand Prix. It revealed a significant weakness in Formula One's groundbreaking new age of power units. The true shock came before the race even started, even though George Russell was celebrating a commanding Mercedes victory. Local hero Oscar Piastri wrecked on the reconnaissance lap in front of an enthusiastic home crowd at Albert Park Circuit after experiencing an unexpected 100 kilowatts surge from the hybrid battery system. According to the new 2026 regulations, this power spike is equivalent to about 13% of the car's total 750 kilowatts output. Australia's greatest chance for a podium was not simply destroyed by that one moment. It exposed a secret technical truth. Even top drivers are finding it difficult to handle these new hybrid systems because of how forcefully they can deliver power. Furthermore, the race's subsequent events might have validated an even greater concern that was permeating the paddock. Oscar Piastri was the center of attention when he arrived in Melbourne. Throughout the weekend, the Australian outperformed the defending champion Lando Norris, continuously keeping up with the leaders and setting himself up for what would have been his maiden podium at home. However, the dream came to an end before the race even began. During the reconnaissance lap, Piastri downshifted over the curb at turn 4 when the hybrid system unexpectedly produced an additional 100 kilowatts of electrical power. This caused the McLaren to spin backwards into the barriers and instantly spin on cold tires. For the first time since 2001, there was not a single Australian driver on the grid when the race started because of the collision. For one of the sport's most ardent fan bases, this is an astounding figure. However, the incident itself wasn't the main worry in the paddock. It was the reason it took place. Electric deployment now accounts for around half of the car's overall output under the new 2026 power unit requirements, significantly altering the way torque is provided. The teams aren't publicly acknowledging that, depending on energy harvesting and deployment mapping, battery release can surge unexpectedly. Additionally, the torque arrives instantly, much faster than the tires can handle, when that spike crosses curbs or hits the mid-turn. What does it signify for the remainder of the season if that system can identify a driver like Piastri before the race even starts? Make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons before we continue so you don't miss any of our most recent videos. Because what transpired in Melbourne may be the first indication of a significant technical change that could determine the outcome of the entire 2026 championship. We must examine the mechanical changes made to the 2026 Formula One cars in order to comprehend why the Australian Grand Prix became such a pivotal event. The hybrid system now generates almost half of the vehicle's total power output for the first time in modern Formula One history. About 400 kilowatts are produced by the internal combustion engine, while about 350 kilowatts are produced by the electrical system using the MGUK battery deployment. This refers to the instantaneous discharge of electrical energy. Compared to drivers in the previous hybrid era, the car receives a massive instantaneous torque boost that is far sharper. Oscar Piastri was caught off guard by precisely this. 3 destabilizing elements coincided as Piastri downshifted over the curb at Albert Park Circuit's turn 4. A quick 100 kilowatts electrical deployment surge, cold tires, and decreased curb surface grip. The traction control algorithms, which are severely constrained by FIA regulations, were unable to adjust for the torque that was sent to the back wheels by that surge. As a result, the wheels spun instantly and even before the race started. However, the fact that this incident wasn't isolated makes it much more intriguing. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, a Mercedes driver, had already lost control during practice earlier in the weekend after speeding over curbs during turn 1. The similarities between the accidents imply that when the battery deploys aggressively at low grip situations, the new hybrid torque delivery may be essentially destabilizing the automobiles. However, one team appeared to have already mastered that method, while McLaren struggled to manage it. Almost immediately as the race began, the Mercedes F1 team and the evidence became clear. Take a look at the first laps. George Russell recovered the lead in just 2 circuits after losing it to Charles Leclerc at the beginning. That provides important information on the Mercedes package. They outperformed Ferraris in terms of energy deployment and traction out of slow corners. The Mercedes gained about 2 to 3/10 N per lap on corner exit acceleration, according to telemetry comparisons from the first stints. This was especially true through Turn 3 and Turn 14, which are crucial traction zones heading onto Melbourne's longest straights. This benefit extended beyond aerodynamics. It concerned Mercedes' utilization of battery energy. And that's where the dispute starts. Concerns that Mercedes might have been taking advantage of a compression ratio interpretation in the engine regulations were privately voiced by a number of teams in the paddock, including representatives from the Ferrari F1 team. Lewis Hamilton's remarks suggest that the Mercedes power unit might be using a more aggressive combustion compression setting, which would extract more efficiency and produce greater electrical energy recovery. That would be a huge advantage if it were true, because more extra energy may be captured and stored in the battery when the combustion engine runs more effectively. Additionally, battery deployment is equivalent to straight-line speed under the 2026 rules. Therefore, Mercedes might have been able to use greater electrical power more frequently while other teams were carefully balancing energy usage. And that is supported by the race data. Russell and Antonelli were able to maintain competitive lap times in the low 1 to 22 area while running 46-lap stints on the hard tire. Ferrari's purportedly newer tires, on the other hand, only slightly improved lap times, typically less than 0.2 per lap. That is extremely important because tire advantage was the foundation of Ferrari's entire racing plan. Most teams hurried into the pits to benefit from the decreased pit stop time loss under VSC conditions when the virtual safety car was activated following Isaac Hadjar's engine failure. However, Ferrari took a risky strategic move. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were both kept on course by them. The concept was straightforward. Attack the Mercedes cars with newer tires, run longer, and pit later. Theoretically, that was a wise decision. In actuality, plan backfired badly because the Mercedes tires didn't deteriorate as Ferrari had anticipated. Examine the lap time difference. Leclerc was only gaining about 1/10 of a lap on Russell, even with new rubber. At that pace, it would take almost the whole race distance to close a 15-second advantage. That reveals a crucial detail about the Mercedes chassis. The vehicle seems to produce incredibly consistent rear-end traction, which lowers tire slip and keeps the car from overheating. It helped the drivers to maintain high lap times while protecting the tires when combined with effective ERS deployment. Russell's confidence over the radio when he assured the crew that a one-stop approach was feasible is also explained by this stability. Russell's speed, however, may not have been the most remarkable aspect of this race. It was his teammates' performance. In the season opener, Andrea Kimi Antonelli finished second, completing a Mercedes W finish, something the team hadn't done since 2019. Because it validated what many teams had feared throughout winter testing, that outcome sent shockwaves around the paddock. The 2026 regulations may have given Mercedes a significant advantage, and there are significant political ramifications. The FIA has already stated that the suspected compression ratio gap will be closed, but not until June. This implies that Mercedes might win the first 6 or 7 races of the season before the regulatory crackdown takes place. Additionally, it may be tough to overcome an early championship advantage in Formula One. Hamilton himself cautioned that the championship match can be determined before the middle of the season if Mercedes scores a lot in the early races. However, this scenario has an additional dimension that further complicates the matter. The behavior of the new 2026 cars has already drawn criticism from drivers all around the grid. After the race, Max Verstappen was brutally honest about how much he didn't love driving these cars. Super clipping is the main cause of this. Drivers must purposefully slow down on quick turns in order for the engine to collect electrical energy and recharge the battery in order to optimize lap time. Super clipping is the main cause. Drivers must purposefully slow down through quick turns to optimize lap time so the engine can gather electrical energy and replenish the battery. In severe circumstances, the vehicle can momentarily run on just 150 kilowatts of power rather than the full 750 kilowatts. As a result, drivers are no longer driving through fast turns at full speed. Rather, they are controlling the flow of energy like endurance athletes. And that completely alters how one drives a race or even a qualifying lap. Now consider the wider picture. The Australian Grand Prix may have just demonstrated the first significant power change of the new F1 era if Mercedes has already mastered this energy management technology while other teams are still having difficulty with it. It took place before the majority of viewers even became aware of what they were seeing. This is the question that has the potential to define the whole 2026 season. Did Mercedes just create the greatest vehicle? Or have they figured out a technological way to interpret the new hybrid regulations that no one else has yet figured out? Because every race until June might turn into a huge points grab for George Russell if the compression ratio loophole is indeed providing them with additional energy recovery and battery deployment. And if it occurs, competitors like Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc may already be losing the championship match. However, what are your thoughts? Was this triumph the result of sheer skill or the first indication of a secret technical advantage? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth